Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I am Phil Bakke coming to you from an undisclosed location.
Somewhere on the eastern seaboard.
somewhere near our nation's capital. And I'm joined by, as always, by my co-host Mika Burrell. Mika, I take it you're still in El Paso, I think.
Still in the Sun City, yes. How was the drive to this undisclosed location?
Drive was good. It was raining a bit in Ohio when I left and like Western PA, but I made it all right. And Eastern Pennsylvania and Maryland, Virginia, where the weather was very nice, so it was a nice picturesque drive through. And I will say Pennsylvania always makes me laugh because there's something very like Appalachia about them being like, where should we put the roads? And we've got these big valleys. Should we like build the roads through the valleys? And some dude just pulls up with a wagon of TNT and is like, who said somebody about through the valleys? I think we go over. What if we go over/through the mountains? And
where the fog cover is like heinous.
And that's just where the roads are.
Yeah.
Like you drive through a mountain, you drive around the mountain.
Yeah, driving in Pennsylvania is not for the weak.
It's really wild.
And then those hater ass state troopers are like crazy. I've gotten so many tickets in Pennsylvania, it's unreal. I hate that place.
They are crawling. But I do enjoy a stop. I enjoyed a stop off in Monroeville, Pennsylvania for a Reuben sandwich. And I got to watch a little playoff hockey, and I had Dom's Tampa Bay Rowdies on the second screen while I enjoyed my little pit stop. So
wait, so the bar, like the place, put on at USL for you?
No, I had it on
your
phone.
I had it on my phone. Okay.
No, that would have been crazy. I'm in like a Riverhounds bar. Just like, oh yeah, let's watch Charleston lose. So.
Well, glad you made it safely.
But yeah, all good.
Yeah, cool.
How has the week been other than
tough week for El Paso Locomotive, although with the benefit of hindsight and like time from the fixtures, like I don't feel as down as maybe I would have
sure
last year in a run. I don't even say run, it's been 2 games of bad results. So I'm feeling pretty copacetic. I mean, we'll get into it. There's stuff, there's bits and bobs that we need to talk about. There's bad and then there's good too. So
yeah, I think I share your calma about this whole thing. I think like I think it is a bit of a return to earth though. Like it's like, hey, let's remember, I was even guilty of it, of like, maybe we're even favorites against Houston, where it's like, and obviously, we get humbled a bit in the Open Cup. This game, it was a little bit of the chaos, like some of the stuff that we talked about. This team can be susceptible to at times, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, all in all, it's not the end of the world, and certainly plenty to still talk about on the positive side among the negatives. But I guess, for those of us finding the podcast, or for those of you, I should say, finding the podcast for the first time, go ahead and subscribe, all those things on your favorite podcast platform. And you can find us basically anywhere you get them. And we also have our Patreon as well. And Mika's been posting some good stuff up there. Yeah, we're going to keep that rolling as much as we can throughout the season. But today, we're obviously going to talk about the San Antonio FC loss in the Copa Tejas, such that it is. And
right, yes,
yeah. And then we may briefly talk about Open Cup, and then we'll look ahead to the most storied of competitions, the Prinks Tires USL Cup against Orange County. So yeah, I think it was John Morrissey from USL Tactics who tweeted, or he posted on Blue Sky earlier today, like, ever since I was a boy, I dreamed of winning the Prinks Tires USL Cup. and yeah, so
It does not have the same ring to it as Jägermeister did, does it?
yeah, Jägermeister really was a different level. But and has anyone ever seen a Prinks tire before? Who's to say?
Right, exactly.
Um, but to open the conversation about San Antonio, obviously that's the bulk of our discussion today. To start off the conversation, Mika, I mean, obviously the starting 11 is generating a lot of conversation, but maybe before we even get into the 11 that played, we could address Gabriel's question on Twitter. What's going on with Amano Moreno?
Yeah, he misses out again. Did not. I mean, he came off after about an hour in Hartford, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not misremembering, and then he didn't feature against Houston, to our surprise, I think.
Yeah.
And then doesn't feature again, not even on the bench, against San Antonio. So I'm hearing like different things. I've heard some people say he's healthy. It's just family or personal matters. I'm hearing some people say he's got a little bit of like an ankle issue that he may be pulled up with in Hartford. So I mean, as ever, if there's one thing that does not change about El Paso Locomotive FC, it's the lack of clarity and um transparency about injuries. So it could be either of those things. That's what I've heard from from the people that I've spoken to about that. Is he has had a little bit of an ankle injury, but maybe these past two have been more personal matters. So I hope if the injury situation is the thing that's keeping him away from the pitch, that it's nothing serious, because he's been fantastic to start the season. Maybe second only to Rubio Rubin, just in terms of contributions and performances. So yeah, one to keep an eye on for sure. This is the first time in a while, or maybe since the season started, that the boys have a little bit of a break. So let's hope that bears fruit in the form of more availability for Amanda Moreno, and anyone else who might be missing out. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, I think it's interesting, in light of the selection, the two kind of people who most stand out, both in terms of like pre-match, it felt odd that, or, it stuck out to us that these two players were missing, and that's Kofi Chumasi and Amano Moreno. Like, they really stand out like a sore thumb when they're not in the lineup. And unfortunately, in this game, it also felt like they stood out like a sore thumb during the match, because the selection, you know, picking your way around those two absences is a bit difficult. The way that Junior has treated the Chumasi absence has been to play a back three. And even with Kofi, he was playing a back three, but he's been playing this back three basically whenever he has to, or does include like Palermo Ortiz and Tony Alfaro. It seems like it sort of has to be as part of a three, or he prefers it to be as part of a back three. And then the biggest impact of the Moreno absence was Alex Mendez was deployed in a forward area along with Beto Avila. At least on paper, Alex Mendez was meant to be playing on the wing. And both of those things end up being, one, quite clunky, and two, unfortunately, kind of lead to the result in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say that Kofi was a big miss. And did we ever get clarity on, because he gets a straight red against Houston in the U.S. Open Cup for that denial of a goal scoring opportunity, being the last man, if I'm not misremembering. So
Yep.
did we ever figure out if that red card carried over to league play? Because, like, to me, that's bizarre, but I
Yeah,
guess.
it's a bit strange because I guess they're both technically like USSF sanctioned competitions, but at the same time, like, I don't know that that's ever historically happened. But um, it does seem like, it's funny because I asked the question, and no one had like a straight answer
That's
of
wild.
whether it does or
Like, we
not.
just don't know.
I think the thing that makes me think that it almost it must be is that his, if he was not having to serve any sort of red card suspension due to his sending off in the cup, then his lack of involvement like makes no sense, because if it was a situation where it's like, hey, he would be suspended in the cup or something like that, then he almost certainly plays this game. I don't know. It feels like it must have been, because otherwise why would he? And it's hard to imagine, unless it was a training injury or something like that, or something off the pitch, he wouldn't have picked up any knocks, like having not played, most of that game against Houston. Um, so yeah, but he was at the autograph table, it seemed. So he was like fully
Oh,
not
okay.
involved.
That I didn't
And
know.
yeah, so a bit weird. But we never got the straight answer of like whether it was because he was serving his red card suspension, which again, I think like the team could probably benefit from like clarity in these certain situations. But
Yeah, but I mean, going back to the original point, he's a big miss. I think you're right to point out that it does seem like we go to this back three whenever Ortiz and Alfaro, and even Dolmeyer, I guess to a certain extent, share the pitch, because I think they're all kind of like maverick center backs in their own ways, and so maybe we're trying to cover for each other's sins a bit by
yeah,
just having more of them. But the way Junior Gonzalez explained it is that he wanted wingbacks. And I mean that, I suppose that's fair enough when you have a player like Gabi Torres, when you have a player like Casada that you want to include in your side. That, I guess, that makes sense as well, because those are very talented players. Um, but yeah, I mean overall, I think the selection was fine. I think it was enough to get a result out of this, and I think, upon reflection, we probably, I think, did deserve more from the game than we got. But I guess I can look no further than the goalkeeper again, that position, to see that Romero is starting this one. He starts this one again, so I don't know that we're any further or any closer to clarity on that.
no, it seems like if anything, we're a bit further. Although I will say, yeah, we'll probably have some comments on Romero's performance, because unfortunately he comes up in this one. I think the other note about the selection is just the two of Calvillo and Gomez did not feel particularly good. And I think we've talked about this, and this isn't even just a Gomez comment, because Eric Calvillo ends up having like a quite good game, I would say, on balance. But I think what we've seen from Eric Calvillo when he's been playing in a 3 this season is, and maybe this is my own confirmation bias, because I've been saying I want to see Calvillo in a 3 for 4 years since he like last played. Because that first season when he did play in a 3, that was when he was kind of at his best, in my opinion. And he's been, I mean, I think he's played some of the best matches that we've seen, thus far. Like, he's had quite a resurgence, and it's typically when there are 3 midfielders. So yeah, I thought that was, I think going to a back 3, back 5, whatever you want to call it, if it's at the expense of the midfield, to me is like a bit strange. Like, I think that's especially the way that that Junior typically has the guys playing, which is on the ground, a lot of like keeping the ball, especially the last few games. It's been a lot of these like slick passing moves, things like that. And in this game, it turned into quite a bit. It turned into a bit of a track meet, which I would say is more something that we got used to seeing, the last couple of coaches.
Well, and to be fair, I'm sure we'll get onto it, but I think Junior Gonzalez would agree with you because it doesn't last,
Yeah.
more than the first half, where we go to the 4. So,
Yeah.
which is the formation that the 4-3-3 is the formation that they started preseason with.
Yeah.
And so,
And by about
yeah,
22 minutes, Alex Mendez was playing midfield effectively. So, like, he had basically dropped off the wing completely. So,
right.
so yeah, a bit of a switch. But early on in this one, Locomotive finding the rhythm. It was a bit end to end, and then the shot not heard around the world. Cronale, Alex Cronale from about 65 yards hits the field goal, and it was obviously like stunning in many ways. Like even me, I was like being at my parents' house, I was like switching the game on, like slightly late onto the main screen, and it was one of those where it was like, let me like go refill my drink or something, before I sit down and watch in earnest. And I look up and I'm like, surely he didn't score from that, and he's picking the ball out of the back of the net. Unfortunately, after the winds maybe aided Cronale a bit, but it floats into the back of the net. And second season in a row, we've been hit by a rival with some crazy inside their own half screamer.
Yeah, it's actually quite bizarre, like how often it feels like this happens to us. I mean, at Gabaldon on Instagram, does our ridiculous springtime win get the assist? I mean, technically, I think, was it Tainer actually who gets the assist?
Yeah,
Just like a
unfortunately.
2-yard square ball to his fellow center back, Cronale.
Just how they
I
drew it
mean,
up.
yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Junior Gonzalez in his reflection of this goal of just our pressing or lack thereof was just unacceptable. I mean, if you watch it back, there's no pressure on any of the center backs, and they're not that far off the halfway line.
Sure.
So why are we that deep and passive in our own half on our own pitch? That that's just not something that can happen with any kind of regularity. And I mean, we hinted at it as we talked about the lineup, but I think that also informs the formation change, and our much better second half. But yeah, this was just a symptom of a bigger problem of like we were just not active off the ball in counter pressing and just kind of jogging around. Um, I know that the questions are like, what part does Abraham Romero play in this? In the post-match press conference, Junior Gonzalez said unprompted, nobody asked him, that that he doesn't blame the goalkeeper for this because it was really just a lack of pressing. He does acknowledge, though, that he was well off his line. Um, and I think that's fair, but I think when we take into consideration the entire performance, it's hard for me to not look at the goalkeeper and say, like, is there more that you could have done, because he conceded all manner of goal against San
Yeah.
Antonio, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just one of those weird, bizarre things. And there was a San Antonio fan that I was kind of going back and forth with on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, about the commentating, because it was just shocking. It was a shocking moment in the
Yeah.
game, and for Duke, Duke wasn't like silent. He says wow, and Joe's on the call as color, and he says wow. And I mean, it's a shocking moment. He does end up like commentating a little bit more, but I don't know. I it's just a weird random thing, and like if we're meant to like lose our collective minds over this goal, like that, I'm afraid we just have different tastes in what we consider good goals, because this is just a total fluke.
It's a hit and hope. I mean, credit to Cronulla to a certain extent for having the vision and kind of seeing the opportunity. That being said, yeah, I mean it's a complete it's a complete punt, like almost literally, right? Like it's just like
Well, and it's one of those
um
things that if it goes wrong, like you look like a right
yeah.
idiot. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's low key like disrespectful if it goes wrong. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'd share the idea that this one, I would say, of the three, it's the one that's least on Romero. Unfortunately, the other two like questions are asked, and it's it just makes it where it's like, yeah, okay, I'll give you this one, and like now we have to talk about the other two.
Mm.
Unfortunately, I think um I and I think too, because I'm sure there are people who are like, well, who's pressing the center back or like closing down a center back to keep him from shooting from 65? It's like, it's not to keep him from shooting. It's to keep him from doing any of what was available to him, which at that point, Cronulla had his pick of the litter. It's actually kind of weird that he chose to do that instead of just drop a ball in behind, because when you look at like the way that we're spread, the entire Locomotive team from the furthest player forward in Rubin likely to the last player back is probably about 20 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He could have easily dropped a ball in behind for somebody to run onto, and it would have been a similar outcome, likely. So I think like that's more so Junior's frustration is like the shape just makes no sense. Like we're pressed really high and we're getting no pressure on the ball. Like you have to do one or the other.
Yeah, pick a struggle.
Yeah. Like you've got to be putting pressure on the ball if you're going to be playing a high line. Like you can't allow that sort of freedom. So yeah, like, and so Romero, he's playing a high line with his defenders, I'd assume like he's in that sweeper sort of mode of if there's anything in behind, but you can't account for if there's no pressure on the ball and a guy gets to just hit it from 65 at the whole goal. So
right.
yeah, bit of a tough one. I guess like what'd you make of the first half performance? Because I mean, up until the point that San Antonio score, I mean, it felt like to me there was a lot of kind of Locomotive having a lot of the ball without a lot to say about what they were doing with it. I would say like there was maybe one glanced header chance in between the goals from Rubin that
Well, right, yeah,
that could have
there
gone in.
was.
Maybe Calvillo has a decent hit with his left foot that I actually put in the group chat. I was like, I don't know if anyone saw it, but Calvillo hit that with his left,
The one
which
that
was
was like always rising.
stayed hit. And
Yeah.
was just that was moving. Unfortunately, Petroni was right behind it. We'll talk more about San Antonio's goalkeeper later on, but it felt maybe a little toothless, I guess, from Locomotive in that like San Antonio was doing a good job. Like San Antonio had no interest in having the ball. They let us have it, and we just weren't able to do all that much with it.
Yeah, I mean, in the first half alone, the stats are kind of bizarre, really, because I mean, we attempt 296 passes, they only attempt 150. That's double. That's nearly
Yeah,
double. And I know we're at home, and maybe that's what you expect. And I personally have questioned whether we should try to exert more control. But this first half did feel like possession for possession's sake. I think also there were more fouls than I would have liked because I'm not convinced by our set piece defending as of yet, and that was the one thing that I think San Antonio were trying to do is just draw fouls and they got one more corner than we did, um I think they were trying to hit us with that. I mean, we know San Antonio, they're perennially just this team of monsters, like physically, like there are some big bodies on that team, in Carlos Yamos's team, and they were trying to make it that kind of game. Yeah, so I mean, we were able to move the ball relatively well, but not for any real. It didn't really create any like real threat. And I think couple that with the fact that we were making a lot of mistakes. I mean, Quesada, there's one part where I don't know if he tries to get the ball back from Palermo Ortiz and he like trips and then they're through
yeah.
and the ball is, I think Hernandez, who was a terror, honestly,
Mhm.
against Palermo Ortiz and Quesada on that side, he shoots just wide. Um, Palermo Ortiz, I mean, I guess we should talk about him now because
Yeah.
his first half was a torrid one. He doesn't look fit to me, to be honest, or at least fully fit. And he's not even doing the things that like you want from him or that he's really good at that you would then tolerate a little more risk taking from him, because as we saw last season, like he would drive with the ball. Like we even saw it in Hartford. He drove
Yeah.
with the ball and had a really good like opportunity to shoot. Obviously didn't take it because he's a center back through and through. But like we're not seeing that from him, and now we're not only not seeing what he's good at, but now he's making mistakes. And I think with a veteran like that, that's really tough mentally. And then to get hooked at halftime, I mean, maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but he does end up causing um the second goal. I think he
Yeah.
plays it right into the path of an onrushing or a pressing San Antonio player who threads it right to Hernandez again, threatening on that side in that left half space, and it's it's 2-0 heading into the pretty close to the second half or halftime.
Y- Yeah, yeah, and like it is one of those like the worst time to concede, right? Of like it's right before halftime, especially given what happens, right even later in the half, and you think about what could have been if the teams go in level versus Locomotive being 2-1 down. But um yeah, this goal felt like it was coming, I guess, because of what you mentioned, where it's a Quezada sort of like slip or miscue. Um,
That was like the prelude to the
exactly,
next,
it was
yeah.
like the threat was there, and
Mhm.
it's a very similar situation, except this one it is Ortiz, unfortunately, who just he plays just a very like it's hard to even define, like because loose pass makes it seem like it was like mishit or something like that. To me, this is a pass that is like a little bit presumptuous.
It's a driven pass, like, he
Yeah,
picks that lane when it's not
and
on.
he just it's just yeah, like I think he almost it's a little bit disrespectful, I guess, of like San Antonio's pressing, and they pounce on it and are just immediately through. And yeah, Hernandez makes it 2-0. It's also, Romero is charging, trying to close down the angle at the near post, but then gets done at the near post. Like, and it was just like it, that to me was really kind of troubling because like if anything, you're trying to get the guy to have to shift, right? Like you're trying to the near post should not be an option if you're closing down the angle. Um, And if you take all of that away, now the guy's having to shoot back towards the middle of the goal where there are like additional bodies and whatever else. Um, but yeah, I think this was a tough one because Romero's like he does the right thing in that he's trying to close down the angle, but then he still allows the goal to
Well,
his right? Like
yeah, the goal squirts under his arm, and it's like if you're go he gets out quickly enough to
yeah,
presumably close down the angle, but then it's like, but then you're not making yourself big, like,
yeah,
you did kind of one part of that, which is, like,
right.
getting out quickly, but then to then allow it to squirt under your arm is just like, "Come on, man." Like,
And
I
then
I
yeah,
think it's not good goalkeeping. It's it's not even his fault that the chance happens, obviously, there's a litany of
right.
mistakes here, but I think when those mistakes happen in front of you, you're hoping that your goalkeeper can bail you out every now and again, sort of like what Sebastian Morimora did in Sacramento.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I have questions about whether this kind of approach to the goalkeeping selection, coupled with the fact that that the defense changes week to week as well, is destabilizing.
yeah,
And now we're starting to pay for it a little bit. So yeah, a lot of mistakes in the lead up, but I just think
yeah.
I would just really want my goalkeeper to give us a chance there to clear it.
With the keeping situation, I believe you may have asked the question in the presser about basically what how Junior was thinking about the goalkeeping situation because from the outside it looks like a platoon, it looks like kind of just like a couple games here, a couple games there, but it is I guess from Junior's perspective, literally 2 games, 2 games, 2 games. Is that his approach?
Yeah, I did ask him about it, and that is basically what he said, is that, thus far, being that we were fighting on two fronts, with US Open Cup and the league, he wanted to give, each keeper 2 games, each as they went. I mean, Junior made the point that, coaches, sometimes they will have their number one guy already picked, like, in preseason, and he thinks that that does a disservice to second choice, as it were, goalkeepers because you're halting their development, and it's like, I understand that, I do, and I think that's very thoughtful, if you will, from a coach who wants to make sure that everyone's as involved as possible and invested in how the team is doing, but again, like, goalkeeper is a very strange, unique position that I think does not benefit from that kind of rotation. Um, I mean, the last team in world football that I can think of that really did it with any success was like, I don't know, maybe like Barcelona, like when they had Ter Stegen and Claudio Bravo, but they were like, they were fighting on four fronts like the whole
Right.
season. So like each keeper had their competitions and it wasn't such a big deal. But
I think
eventually, there even then a number one emerged eventually.
I
So,
think that's I think that's the thing is like the only time I've ever seen it work is when it is delineated by competitions
mm,
and
which ours hasn't been anyway. It's
right.
literally yeah, not at all.
Because you think of like Allison and Kelleher in like good, very good Liverpool seasons where they were fighting on multiple fronts, but Kelleher was the cups, right? Like that, he was in the League Cup, FA Cup, and Allison was the league in the Champions League. Like that's just how it was. Um, and so, yes, Kelleher, like very good goalkeeper. And I think there needs to be a level of predictability from the team and everybody around of like, we know that this is our guy in the league. Like if as long as he's healthy and everything. And yeah, unfortunately, I do think the chopping and changing is a bit odd. I also think like I mean, we're obviously still quite early in the season and all of this stuff, but I do think that barring some craziness, I think number one has emerged. Like I do think that Moramora is like I prefer him in goal. I think a lot of people are starting to form that opinion, like from the fan side. Um, and it obviously helps when you go have a game like Sacramento that is the sort of like you can point to it and say like, hey, straight up, if it weren't for Sebastian Moramora, like I don't know if we win that game. But I've been waiting for Romero to have those sorts of moments, and I'm just not seeing the like. It'd be interesting to look at the advanced stats of like goals, sort of like a goal stopped, right? Like versus XG. Because in this one it's not a pretty sight for San Antonio's XG versus goals.
Right. Yeah, and I wish we had those stats because I think that'd be really illuminating. But I mean, what we do have is, he's allowed 7 goals on 11 shots on target, and he's only made 4 saves. So I
Yeah,
think that's brutal, right?
that's
that's
really rough.
that's brutal. Whereas Sebastian Moramora's had 8 shots on target against, only conceded 1. Again, in half the games, half the matches played,
Sure,
but I mean, you,
seven
that's
saves.
yeah, that's what I'm like kind of starting to notice about Romero, is that I'm not exactly sure what he's excellent at as a goalkeeper.
Right.
And in the modern game, goalkeepers have to be good at basically everything. I mean, they have to be footballers as well as shot stoppers, but I'm not seeing that from him. I'm not seeing the confidence in directing traffic in because I mean, for that first goal, maybe that's on him. Is he not like part of the like, okay, push up, I'm gonna sweep, like I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not seeing
Sure.
that. I'm not seeing so much communication. The shot stopping, not too impressive. The distribution, his size, like he's not super imposing. So you know what I'm saying? Like I just don't know. And I
Yeah.
think when you see how Joseph Petruni played in the other goal, it just brings that into sharp focus of like that's what a really top keeper can do for you, is preserve a result, and not just a result, but 3 points on the road against your rival
Hmm.
when you know last time out, you had the brakes beaten off you by Orange County or whoever it was. San Antonio hasn't had the perfect start to the season, so
Yeah.
huge result for them. And I think that the two keepers and their contrasting performances, I think it just brings it into sharper focus that we need to. I think my opinion is that we need to settle on someone, or if it's going to be Romero, he needs to raise his level significantly.
And I mean, yeah, we'll talk about it, but I do think there's a reason that Petroni, gets mobbed by the San Antonio players at full time. We'll talk about the second half here in a little bit, but 45 plus one in first half stoppage time. It's that man again. Locomotive kind of put it in the mixer. We've got people up for a set piece. It's off a free kick, kind of a deeper free kick, if I'm not mistaken. We've got people up for the set piece, and it gets knotted down by Palermo Ortiz and Rubio Rubin, who just he simply scores in every game he's involved in. Like I don't know. This guy's he's just always there. But yeah, Rubio Rubin gets us back in. It kind of gives us that lifeline right before halftime, which we conceded at kind of the second worst possible time, but scored at the best possible time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a big lift for the crowd and for the team to go into the dressing room with something, and to kind of shift the momentum back in your favor a little bit before heading back for halftime. This is not an easy chance, I think, for Rubio Rubin. And by the way, credit to Palermo Ortiz. He had a torrid first half. I'm glad that his final involvement of the game involved creating that goal, because it's actually very clever from him, the veteran. He checks around him to see if anyone's going to contest this duel with him. No one's up for it, and Palermo ends up nodding it down into the path of Rubin, who finishes really well. It's so close. He's so close to the goal that I'm not sure Petroni can do too much about it, but I think that San Antonio will have regrets about just not winning that first duel. Against, ostensibly a player who might have been low on confidence given what had happened prior. But yeah, Rubio Rubin, just the ultimate, like, his goals are like poacher's goals, but he does so much more than that for the team. And so I'm just thrilled for him that he's been able to hit the ground running and show what kind of player that he is, and that we really didn't get to see much in Charleston, and maybe haven't seen since maybe the MLS days. So 5th goal in the league, and I think 7th overall, so leading the club goal scoring charts, and I think still in the Golden Boot conversation. So
yeah, and I mean, I think he'll make a good go of it at this clip. I will say, the interesting thing about this is obviously with Ortiz being involved, I was in the back of my mind, I was kind of worried. I put in halftime thoughts that I'm like, certainly Ortiz like has to come off. It was just like, again, not to like really dig a player out, but he really was having a terrible time. And it's worth mentioning that something that John Morrissey, and I know I've cited him quite a bit tonight already, but in his power rankings on Backheeled, he talked about the fact that Kofi Chumasi, like the thing that stuck out statistically over the course of the season is that he has won 80% of his ground duels. So like he's not getting dribbled past hardly at all, and he's winning tackles like at an 80% clip, which is insane. Like that.
wow.
Just crazy. And unfortunately, Palermo wins. He's 0 for 3 on the night in ground duels, which is for a center back just a very tough thing. I think he completes 1 tackle, in 45 minutes, and that's just that's a difficult like thing to overcome. And I was thinking that, okay, his involvement in this is that going to change the mind, because certainly he has to come off here. And I would say credit to Junior Gonzalez for making the change, because that's probably not an easy conversation to have with a guy who's as senior as Palermo Ortiz, has like all of the experience that he does. But Junior makes the tough call, and does make the halftime sub. He brings on Ricky Ruiz and Robert Coronado at halftime for Daniel Gomez and Palermo Ortiz, switches to the back four, puts Ruiz out on the left, like out at left back, and then it's Coronado, Calvillo, Mendez, like as a three. And kind of back to a 4-3-3. And from kind of the kick at halftime, it felt like, okay, this is more like it. And it really felt like Locomotive's game kind of from halftime, but still some frustrations because Petroni was playing so well. And it took 10 minutes before Beto Avila decided to have a go from distance himself. And this hit is
insane.
Crognale could keep the big the kick and field goals. Like, this is a screamer.
Yeah, this is more my taste, to be honest with you. Like, this is what I want to see. I don't want to see 65-yard lobs. Like, miss me with that. Like, this is a hell of a goal. And I think that, Beto Avila himself, after the game, he kind of talked about how he needed to up his level from the first half, and that Junior kind of got stuck into him and said, you've got 10 to 15 minutes to show me like why you should still remain on the pitch, like making an impact. And he did so. And it's just a ridiculous finish. This is such a small detail, but I love the ball back from Ruby Rubin. Like, I love that our striker, like, you could not blame him for being greedy, but he doesn't see that he's got a shooting lane, so he lays off, and like, it's a very quick, like, with the toes, like, just kind of lays it off back to Beto, and Beto's able to line it up and just puts the laces through it, and it's just arrowed into that corner. Nothing Petroni could do about that one for once. But yeah, the second half, I think, was just so much better, and I have to give credit to Junior Gonzalez for realizing that, do I really need three center backs when they're not engaging with us in that way with their striker? Probably not, and it switches to the four. And we basically tripled all of our, really key attacking metrics. 15 shots, 6 of those on target. It was just a lot more potent, which, for all that good that we did, like, it just made Petroni's performance even more impressive because he was under the cosh. But, he came through for San Antonio ultimately.
That's the tough thing about those 6 shots on target is Petroni makes 5 saves in the second half alone. This,
like, Gabi Torres should have like a brace in this game.
Yeah.
Which he was fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, I
a
really
player who
enjoyed
deserved more.
And Gabi second half essentially is playing. It's interesting because we talk about Ricky Ruiz sometimes finding himself a little bit further forward, and Gabi in midfield and all this sort of stuff. But what ends up happening in this one is Gabi is playing left wing, like in front of Ricky Ruiz, which is a very interesting. Whenever they were both deployed last season, I was like, this is a little left back like overdose. But the Gabi on the left. Gabi's got this like ability, despite the fact that he's not, like, I would say when you watch him, he's not the fastest player on the pitch by any stretch. But for some reason, like, he can play the ball and take touches like out away from defenders, and then he always beats them back to it. It's very strange that he's not like the fastest sprinter, but he's always quick to the ball, and like he takes these like kind of anticipatory touches, and he finds himself in a lot of space. And he was a menace, both from almost scoring a couple of times, but he was also like putting the ball into the danger area from that left wing, and a lot of the play was really flowing through him. But it, unfortunately, Petroni was just, I think what was maybe frustrating about this performance in particular is that when you hold up the saves that Petroni makes next to the goals that Romero allows, it's like kind of similar shooting positions in a lot of cases, and you're like, well, shit, like this
like,
is
that's how that's supposed to look. Literally the one
do that.
The one at the near post for Torres is.
It's a carbon copy of the Hernandez goal, basically, of like, except Gabi drags it tries to go the other way. I think like he tries to shoot towards the middle because the near post has been closed out. Like that angle is not available to him, and
Right.
so yeah, it's unfortunate because it was like watching it's like watching a clinic on what to do and what not to do, unfortunately, and we were on the wrong end of that goalkeeping display.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's difficult to find like really good XG stats for USL Championship, but what I was able to find is that we created 2.33 XG to
Hmm.
San Antonio's 1.52. So I mean, like, we should have scored at least another goal, I think.
Yeah,
And Batruni's a match winner. He really is.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean,
yeah.
fair play to him, but goodness me, it was frustrating.
Yeah, USL Analytics on Blue Sky, which I think uses like US soccer or American soccer stats or whatever. But anyways, everybody calculates XG like slightly differently and has different models and stuff. But they had it at 2.27 like open play XG for Locomotive and a 0.88 for San Antonio. Um, and
And I mean,
they classified like one of Locomotive's chances as great, which I think is the Rubin goal. Five as good, three as average, and 12 as poor of all of their shots. And then San Antonio of their shots, they had seven poor chances, five average, and one good. And none of them were great. And by the models, which yeah, it doesn't paint a very inspiring picture. The shot locations, because obviously they happen at the, and I know I'm getting on to the third goal here, which was the heartbreaker from San Antonio, but um, the interesting thing about the Pirano winner and the Hernandez goal is that they happen at opposite ends of the pitch, so it's sometimes hard to tell exactly like the relative location because camera angles and all that stuff. But when they're overlaid over each other, when the shot maps are overlaid on the same, area, they are taken from like effectively the same position, which is again not super inspiring like for Romero because it's basically the same goal like plays out two times, just mirror images of each other. This one, again, not all Romero's doing, unfortunately, because it starts really just with a kind of like unnecessary back pass from Jimmy Farkaloon, who we've been, quite, quite like we've praised quite a lot. But he makes kind of this weird back pass to the feet of Kenneth Hoban, who gets immediately closed down and loses the ball. And then Pirano's in. And unfortunately, that was that.
yeah, it's again, I mean, we can talk about Romero and how we, want to see more from him, but again, he's not completely at fault. It's a series of mistakes in front of him. It's just a shame that these two players were, ostensibly fresh, should be switched on, should be trying to help us win the game, not just preserve the draw, but win the game, and they ended up costing us. I know Kenny Homan is only, 16 years old, 15 years old. And again, unprompted, Junior Gonzalez was very defensive of him and said, he's the next man up. Like, if I'm trusting him in this situation, I'm not just going to like, kill the guy now because of a mistake like this. But he also said twice, the pass is not good. Fargoon's pass is not good, and it's not. Um, but yeah, and then San Antonio, really good counter pressing again, like forcing us into another mistake. And Romero, he gets down and he does get fingertips on it, but I do think I think if Petruni's facing that same shot, he does parry it wide, at least for a corner. So yeah, Romero gets fingers on it, but it still is able to creep into the net. And to be fair, Pirano's a good player, and it's a shot from close range. He's able to get some decent power on it. But again, like I think a top keeper gives you a chance in those situations, and I don't know. Even Romero's body language, like he doesn't look happy with how he's playing. So
Yeah.
I might be reading into that, and I accept that. But yeah, it's just not good. And it's the worst way to win a game that I think we could have won.
Sure.
Given what we just talked about how much XG we created and how many good chances we had that we were thwarted by a keeper in top form at the other end of the pitch.
Yeah, and it is a 3-2 loss, Locomotive's first of the season, so important. I think in terms of our us, not feeling overly doomer about the whole thing. It is obviously a first loss, and so keeping it in perspective that way. That being said, the nature of the loss, the opponent, all of those things like make it a little tougher to take. But um, in talking about this game and maybe a good way to wrap up some of the discussion, I guess, is just like uh, this question from NG Nico on Instagram. Is Junior Gonzalez tinkering too much, switching between the back three, back four, how it affects the midfield? We also got a question about from Rusty Miller on Twitter about the midfield not being able to break up play, and how are these things connected? Like, is it time now for Junior to try his best to find something a little more steady in terms of system, or is it like, hey, these are the cards I've been dealt by suspension and injury, etc., and he's gonna keep looking for the best shape to win each game?
I think when you have a football mind like Junior Gonzalez does, you can get a little bit um enthusiastic, if you will, to like make changes and play that chess game, that tactical chess game. And I asked him, because he said, I'm going to reflect on myself as well as on what the players did and how we can be better. And I pretty much asked him, were you reflecting on yourself when you hauled off two players at halftime and said, maybe I got it wrong in terms of my selection and in terms of my tactics? And he pushed back on that a little. He said, no, it was just, tactical. I just figured we didn't need an extra center back the way that they were playing. And he was right. I think he was right to make that change. So I don't know that I call it tinkering when it worked. You know what I mean? I think if it wasn't working, if we were just changing and chopping and changing for the sake of it, then that would be one thing. But in this game in particular, he does change to the back four and it works. So I don't have any problem with that. And what I really don't have a problem with, and what I like about Junior Gonzalez, is that he does recognize when changes should be made, even if they are, in my view, I think if you're taking off two players at halftime, it's because you made a choice that didn't work out, right? And that's kind of what I was trying to get at when I asked him that. But I tend to like a coach that can make those changes on the fly. I think it would be too much if we're seeing this game in, game out where like the tactics are wrong from the start and we have to keep changing it. But I just don't think there's been enough for me of a sample size to say like, yeah, it's too much. It's tinkering. It's overthinking. Like he's doing the Pep Guardiola before a big game. Like, I just don't think we're to that point yet. But I don't know. Do you have any pushback against that, Phil, or what do you think?
No, I think at the end of the day, I would say he probably would benefit in general from getting a little more consistent in certain areas. But I I think it when you've got a squad of this size, like we've seen every Locomotive manager, since the beginning has had their own way of like approaching that. Um, some have gone with like, hey, I play what I play, and like you either can play there in that system or you cannot. And that is like
Hmm.
really just Mark, to be honest, like where we weren't changing shape all that much. Like
No.
I think we shifted between a 4-4-2 diamond and a 4-3-3, which is like the slightest of tactical shifts up top, versus
I mean,
playing
it
a
only ever changed based on like Dylan Mars's availability. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's like, is Dylan Mars playing? Because then we're playing a diamond. But so uh so yeah, I think that versus what we've experienced more recent, across the last basically three managers is more akin to, hey, I'm gonna like make the best of the players I have available and try to play a system that I think works for them. Um, I think it's probably a little oversimplifying to say, oh, he just needs to like stick to one thing always, because if the 4-3-3 all of a sudden looks diabolical against a team, we're going to be saying like, why didn't he switch it up and why didn't he do something different? But I would say I think I am more so I guess a bit of a purist of like, especially when the best play, like you should play the system that emphasizes the strengths of your best players, and the other players are going to be like hidden a bit, in a system that works for them. So if
Right.
like Eric Calvillo and Rubio Rubin and Alex Mendez are cooking in a 4-3-3, like don't
Then
fuck with
play
it
a
on behalf of
4-3-3.
someone else. Yeah, yeah,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, if there's a place that I would prefer more consistency is not necessarily in the system, it's in the selection.
yeah,
Like because if Coffee's not in this side because of any other reason but a red card, then that is crazy to me. Like I really hope it's not that he was being like quote unquote punished for what happened in Houston, because that's wild. If so,
totally.
so for me, it's more about like, can we nail down like who our best 11 is and try to build something with those, and then and everyone have kind of like their defined role. And I'm sensitive to the fact that Junior is concerned about development and making sure everyone feels bought in, which only comes maybe from playing minutes, but we do want to win games and win them consistently, and get into the playoffs and hopefully do well there as well. So it's more for me, it's more about selection than system necessarily.
Yeah,
um but also just too early, I think.
no, very fair. But drawing a line under that, and a tough week for Locomotive, maybe a bit of a return to earth this week. Obviously, this was worsened by a loss to another team from Texas, Houston Dynamo, in the Open Cup midweek, and a quite heavy defeat as well in Houston. It obviously did not go to plan with Chumasi sending off, and um, but credit to Beto Avila, who, I mean, 2 games in a row, he scored an absolute wonder goal, more of a curler against Dynamo. But Dynamo, a bit of a situation where like it kind of felt like as soon as you concede in the second minute, that's kind of game plan gone, and you gotta like, there's a big mountain to climb at that point. And unfortunately, this team just didn't have like the ability to claw it back in the way that we saw maybe some other teams fight back in other situations across the Open Cup.
Yeah, but what I would say is that even after we went down, it's not like we stopped playing. I mean,
No,
there was some decent moves and some decent time spent in their half.
Gabby hitting the post.
Gabby hitting the post.
That
Yeah, oh
was
my
felt like
god.
a sliding doors moment when it could have been 1-1.
He's been so unlucky this
Yeah,
past week. It'll fly in for him soon, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, yeah, once you concede in the second minute and then later on get the red card, it's like, okay, there's nowhere to go with this one. But you're playing for pride. And I thought that like the boys acquitted themselves well. I mean, Houston Dynamo kind of like they went like way stronger than I thought they would. Like they had their DPs out there. It was just like, okay, like
yeah,
I guess Ben Olsen really takes US Open Cup seriously, and I suppose you have to if you've won it twice. With 2 different teams.
and you're
So
14th in the Western Conference.
true.
But
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
no, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to kind of like give your team a shot in the arm and just beat up on someone real quick. So yeah, I mean, our US Open Cup journey ends there, but I think that we acquitted ourselves pretty well throughout our stay in the competition, and I think we're finally like have exercised like the US Open Cup demons, and we are figuring out ways to get results in obscure places, and show our best against top level opposition, as far
Yeah,
as this country is concerned. So
yeah. Yeah, 2 years in a row getting a match against an MLS team, that becoming an annual tradition, I think should be like kind of the minimum requirement now, of, hey, you should win your way past the other championship teams and be in the rounds, against, and it's going to be New Mexico every year. Like, so we just got to we got to beat New Mexico in the second round every year. So keep doing that, please. But that yeah, the exit, not the end of the world coming against MLS side, but next up, the other cup, the USL Cup, which for those who don't remember the Jägermeister, just as a quick primer on the USL Cup structure for this year. All of the teams in both USL Championship and League One, it's a league cup. Like, you can think of it that way, but it is the Championship and League One are broken up into groups. You play can't really call it a round robin, but it is a round robin of sort. It's like a half a round robin within your group of, you play four out of the 5 other teams. And the group winner advances to the knockout stage. So in a group of 6, only one team advances. And what we found in this competition last year is that we basically lost we drew the first game, I think, against Texoma, if I remember correctly. And it was basically over. Like, there was no, like, it was like, well, okay, I guess that is kind of it. Like,
Was that when our former goalkeeper like stunned it on us?
Oh yeah, Javier Garcia had
Yeah.
like he played a blinder, yeah.
Great.
And basically played his way into a subsequent contract, because he's still rocking in League One. He's like considered one of the best goalkeepers in League One.
Is he at Athletic Boise?
Yeah, he's at Boise now, I believe.
With Dennis Costitian absolutely ripping it up for the Basques.
Love it.
Wow. If we can get them at some
I know,
point
I would
season,
really love to play. And I don't know if you saw, but their opening home game in Boise was mad. They
really
like absolutely packed the place. I think it was like 7,000.
Holy crap.
Yeah, just like Boise is like real all in on this team. Plus, like, I think it's so, it's one of those things where we talked about the Basque connection and all that sort of stuff, but AC Boise does actually have on the back of their jersey, like a la Athletic Club, they have the Basque flag on the, like,
and a la Real, the Copa del Rey champions.
Yes, I'd be remiss to leave out.
No, that's such a cool vibe they got going on up there. Good for them.
But yeah, so in this group of 6, we basically only one team is going to advance, and the teams in Locomotive's group this year are AV Alta from League One, Colorado Springs, New Mexico, Orange County, and Phoenix Rising. So a bunch of teams that we played a bunch. It's almost like COVID vibes plus AV Alta.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. And so Locomotive, their matchups are against Orange County, AV Alta, Colorado Springs, and New Mexico. So we don't have to play Phoenix is essentially that's essentially it. And we play Orange County in California. AV Alta game will be at home. The Derby will be at home, and then we'll play Colorado Springs in Colorado. But so Orange County next up. What do we know about Orange County, who's been around? We've got quite a history with OCSC, but what do we know about the 2026 edition?
I mean, what I can tell, I did watch one of their games, the one against San Antonio, where they absolutely destroyed them at their stadium in Irvine, and they were very impressive, very dominant. Not so much physically, but just kind of like they set the tempo of the game in that one. And they're just very stingy defensively. I mean, they do not concede easily. And so I think this is what I thought would be unstoppable force versus a movable object in San Antonio versus El Paso might actually be this game in our high octane offense versus their very stingy defense. I think they're best in the league in terms of like goals against. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a tough tough old game, and I mean, Orange County are not strangers to trophies, so I can only assume that they're going to take this one very seriously. They haven't conceded a goal in the last 3 games. So yeah, it's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, I will say people who watched Orange County against Lexington this past weekend may be entitled to financial compensation because it was absolute terrorismo uh, on both accounts.
Looks like it, to be fair, from the
Yeah,
stats.
bit of a tough watch. That being said, I think what you said about the way that they're stingy. I mean, in this game against Lexington, they allow 7 shots, and none of them would be classified as by American Soccer Reference. Like none of them were classified as even average. They were all considered poor
Mhm.
chances, which is, I mean, obviously
Wild.
very good in terms of just limiting what teams can do against you. And they actually created relatively they probably should have won, and they had like a real chance to win the game. That being said, I think like the danger folks, like they've got some very familiar faces in attack. Ethan Zubak has obviously been around the league for quite a while. Liam McKinnon, who kind of came up through League One, and has been just he's been playing quite well to start the season. He has a bit of a down game against Lexington, but overall, like he's had a quite good season. And then yeah, their defense, just the way that they are able to play together in conjunction with a midfield that still includes the likes of Kevin Partita, Nico Benalcazar. Like there's a lot of very, very solid players in here, and they've got a lot of time together, and I think it's just paying off because they are an extremely difficult team to play against right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're well coached, well drilled, and I just need to talk about this. Like, what do you mean you have a defender named Mohamedou War and he's a Japanese international? Like, obviously your defense is stingy. Like, you have a motherfucker named War. Like, no, but
Uh,
yeah, they played
insert
the.
straight of Hormuz joke here.
I mean, I guess he like he played like high school or like college level in Japan, like, and then came to California. So I mean, that's cool.
That is cool.
Um, but yeah, I mean, they play this kind of like 4-5-1, I guess you could call it, where they're able to kind of like drop back into their shape pretty easily, and then you've got that veteran in Kevin Partita kind of anchoring everything. I mean, you know, they're just built. They're built for this.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think it's gonna be a very tough game. And yeah, I mean, once their attack gets going, like this to me is one of the stronger teams in the league. Um, just on balance.
Yeah. No, I think this will be difficult. I think it'll be interesting on both teams who actually plays.
Mm,
Because the one thing to keep in mind in all of this is obviously just the fixtures. So um,
right.
with it being with it being a Saturday uh, cup game, because they do, credit to USL in that they do give the cup weekend game like to breathe. That said, Locomotive come back home from California and play Wednesday against Tulsa. Um,
Ah.
and and so yeah, something to keep in mind in that we have seen Junior do some with the Hartford match in particular, he did some uh had some guys not travel in the interest of keeping them fresh. So it'll be interesting to see if he prioritizes. Does he see USL Cup as something that he wants to like go full force into against Orange County as maybe a primer for the rest of the season and not losing 3 straight in all competitions? Um, or does he see that match against Tulsa on Wednesday like as the more important one? So it'll be interesting to see how Junior prioritizes.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that I mean they are getting this week of rest, so I do wonder if that also will help in terms of like maybe pushing a little bit with some of the availability for the next couple games. because they do have this little bit of rest, and they'll be able to actually train. But yeah, it'll be fascinating, and I'm glad that this competition exists just to like give us a little bit of something else in the table, in the fixture list, if you will.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm interested to see how serious we take it.
Orange County, on the flip side, they play Saturday against us at home, and then they go to Sacramento the following Saturday. So they've got
So
a
they
very
can
short
really,
trip,
yeah.
and they could really go. They really don't have to worry about congestion at all. Um, so they might
We
have
say
a little bit
short
more.
trip when like Orange County to Sacramento is like 6-7 hours. Like the European mind could never comprehend. Like
No, I know. It's like it's the same state. It's the El Paso Houston dilemma
right,
of like it's the same state. Like
yeah,
um, only in theory,
right.
not in practice.
No, but yeah, I mean that does make a difference. They have that whole week, so they could
Yeah,
really they can go hell for leather. But we have a little more to think about. So yeah,
yeah,
that's
it'll be
you're right to
interesting.
call that out.
Um, but yeah, a very interesting matchup, and actually, I it depends on how the USL show goes tomorrow, but I'm fairly confident that I may be making an appearance on the Orange and Black Soccer Cast. Our friends over there, so
Oh no
um,
way, nice.
yeah. Um, so yeah, keep an eye out for that as well. But we'll sneak our preview in before them, so we're beating them to the punch. No, I guess yeah. Any other bits or bobs?
I don't think so. Like I said, I'm pretty copacetic about how the way how things are going. I think there's nothing to lose our rags over right now, and like
Yeah,
Rubio Rubin said, we're getting it out of the way early. So,
yeah,
um, so yeah, let's see, and let's stay behind the team and keep hoping that we can keep building on what's been a really great start. To be honest.
yeah, yeah. The momentum hopefully can keep moving, and yeah, if you've enjoyed, please follow or subscribe on whichever podcast platform you prefer, and we will catch you sometime after the cup or maybe after the the Tulsa match. But either way, until then, stay loco.